Thanks to the Institute for Public Policy and Social Research for hosting the forum and for inviting me here today. I'm going to rather broadly cover several different topics. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Michigan Office of the Great Lakes. I'm going to review the status of funding for Great Lakes programs. And finally, I'm going to just touch on a few different Great Lakes issues that some of our other speakers will cover in a little bit more depth after I'm done. All right, I'm not getting any action here. Was that you or me? Oh, okay, thank you. The Michigan Office of the Great Lakes was established in 1985 to provide a focus for Great Lakes policies within the Michigan state government. We advise the governor's office and other state agencies on a number of Great Lakes issues. Up until last December, the Office of the Great Lakes was part of the Department of Environmental Quality, but we are now housed within the Department of Natural Resources. Although we are considered part of the DNR, our director, John Allen, is a cabinet-level official and does report directly to the governor. Our office has a staff of roughly 20 environmental professionals and support personnel. Our office has identified 4 key priorities, and I normally don't read my slides, but I'm not sure all of you in back can see that, so I'm going to actually go through them. They are protect and restore aquatic ecosystems, promote water stewardship, support vibrant, healthy, and resilient communities, and build collaboration and shared governance for water. I'd like to mention a couple of specific items that we've been working on. First of all, every year we put out a State of the Great Lakes report, and there were copies available on the back table. I don't know if there's any still left there. That's something that gets done every year. About 2 years ago, an interdepartmental team led by our office developed a wide-ranging water strategy for Michigan. It includes about 75 recommendations to help us protect and restore Michigan's Great Lakes, inland lakes, rivers, streams, and groundwater. Our governor selected 5 specific priority areas that he asked us to focus on. Those were to ensure clean and safe drinking water, achieve 40% reduction of phosphorus in Lake Erie, prevent and control aquatic invasive species, support investments in harbors, and develop and implement a water trails system. And there's more information available at our website, which is www.michigan.gov/water-strategy. Our office has also been heavily involved in the Great Lakes Compact, established in 2008 by the 8 Great Lakes states with consultation from Ontario and Quebec. The Great Lakes Compact governs Great Lakes water withdrawals. For the most part, it bans water withdrawals outside the Great Lakes Basin, with exceptions for certain communities that must meet very strict standards. We were deeply involved in assessing the proposed withdrawal from Waukesha, Wisconsin. And we are currently investigating whether the proposed Foxconn development in Wisconsin will also need to go through the assessment process. Now to switch directions a little, I'd like to talk about Great Lakes funding. The Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, or GLRI, is a federal program that started in 2010. It provides dedicated federal funding for a variety of Great Lakes programs. All the money comes through the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. They use some of that money directly and distribute much of the rest of it to other federal agencies, to tribes, and to Great Lakes states. And not surprisingly, of all the Great Lakes states, Michigan gets the biggest share of that. Much of it has been used for remediating contaminated sediment, restoring fish and wildlife habitat, and protecting the Great Lakes from invasive species. In particular, they focused on the bighead and silver carp. Here's a graph showing the history of funding for the GLRI. It was originally proposed as a 5-year program with a funding level set at $475 million a year. What actually happened is they did fund it at $475 million the first year, and after that, the amount dropped to $300 million, and it's been relatively stable at that level, not exactly 300, but close to that ever since then. You may have heard the President propose slashing the budget by 90% for 2019, cutting it to $30 million. But the program is widely popular with the public, and it has widespread bipartisan congressional support. So we're pretty optimistic that that cut will be at least partially, if not fully, restored. Before I wrap up, a couple of Great Lakes issues that I wanted to at least touch on. As I said, some of the other speakers will talk about this a little bit more. Climate change is one. It's got the potential to significantly affect the Great Lakes. There's variance in ice cover, storm events, and flooding. Those are all becoming more common. Coastal communities are especially vulnerable to Great Lakes water level changes, storm events, and hazards like erosion. Obviously, we have a serious problem here. Resiliency measures, including zoning, planning, and stormwater management, can reduce the effects of climate change. I mentioned invasive species earlier, and two of our other speakers are going to talk about this further. The Great Lakes food web and ecosystem has been dramatically changed by many different invasive species, especially the sea lamprey and zebra and quagga mussels. Bighead and silver carp moving up through the Illinois River are a significant threat that are continuing to receive a lot of attention. Finally, a specific action I'd like to highlight is the completion of Michigan's domestic action plan for Western Lake Erie. I mentioned earlier that the governor has committed to reduce phosphorus inputs from Michigan to Lake Erie by 40% by the year 2025 in order to reduce the likelihood of massive algae blooms in Lake Erie. The plan was a joint effort of the Departments of Agriculture, Environmental Quality, and Natural Resources. It was just released a couple of weeks ago and lays out exactly how Michigan will do that. It will be achieved through a combination of regulatory and voluntary methods. The EPA is taking the Michigan plan and merging it with plans from Ohio and Pennsylvania and adding some of their own stuff to basically put together a comprehensive U.S. plan for addressing Lake Erie. That concludes my remarks. You can visit our website or follow us on Twitter at these places. And with that, thank you, and I will invite Dr. Kendall to the podium.